AI is yet another tool. I think it's still very early days, but we are investigating some opportunities to use AI in our trading tech in the just not too distant future, both in what we're going to be doing in Canada and what we're looking at doing here in the US. So it's a trend that we're evolving with, as are paying very close attention to these technological advancements.
What does the VettaFi deal completion mean for TMX?
As part of our data business, we weren't involved in the indexing and benchmarking, and that was a key hole in the portfolio of our service offering. And one of the things that we ran into them probably a little over a year ago, we had a minority investment of 25%. We got a chance to really sort of test this out. And I think they really bring something unique to the table, how they basically source a lot of the key information as to where the puck is going in terms of ETF flow. That way it allows us, based on the conference that they drive and based on the different interaction that they have with industry, how do we essentially build better indices and better products and services that the ETF providers are looking for? And that way you can work with them in a community approach to basically be delivering exactly what it is that they want. And so it's that full sort of pipeline creation that we didn't have. I think this is a massive enabler for our ETF franchise. We are not only a Canadian organization, we have a Canadian address, but we are global in nature. And I think what VettaFi does is, on the index and benchmark creation around our data efforts, it allows us to grow globally. They're becoming larger and larger and more important in the US, and we'll be able to import that into Canada, to further into the US and into Europe and Asia eventually.
TMX introduced a new Canadian trading platform consisting of 2 order books. How do they fit into TMX's equity offerings?
Where is the demand? The demand in particular is around quality of execution. The buy side has been neglected for such a long period of time that, and there's greater and greater fiduciary responsibility around the buy side on the quality of the execution and to be able to track those. And I think the venue that we've actually built in Canada, technically it's kind of disrupting ourselves. We have established marketplaces with 60-odd% market share in Canada. This is a disruptor in the sense that it will take away some of the market share in our existing venues, but this is our wedge of where we think the puck is going here in the US. Right now, when you look at best execution, there are a number of different venues that operate in that realm. Represents maybe 5%. We see the regulatory environment evolving to where that market share could grow to upwards of 10%. And we think we have an opportunity to capture some of that. Best place to start is in your own backyard. And then eventually this is what we're going to build in the US as part of our ATS that we'll be launching later this year.
What is the status of Term CORRA?
Term CORRA is evolving very nicely. Obviously, this is a very critical transition. We're a few months away from completely doing away with BAs, exporting them into Cora futures. So this is going to be sort of the last phase. The way we monitor progress relative to other jurisdictions, probably a bit of ahead of curve in terms of overall adoption. And, very excited to see this, in our rear view mirror. It's been a critical transition for Canada. And we've worked very closely with industry and the central bank to ensure that, it was going to be a smooth transition.
Have you used Chatgpt or other AI models in your workflow?
You'd be surprised not to find anyone who hasn't at least tried this stuff out. It's incredibly powerful, but it has to have the right database. And it has to have the right, sort of the right framing. I think a lot of concerns is, the sharing of all of the data. There's a lot of confidential data pertaining to our own clients. So for us as an organization, we need to figure out how we can actually use this within a safe ecosystem. And I think that's the case with a lot of other organizations. But AI is incredibly powerful. And I think it can add a tremendous amount of value if it's used right, with the right kind of, sort of safeguards.
What is the current environment for ESG in Canada, particularly the ESG investment space?
There's been pushback, especially after the outbreak of the Ukraine war. A lot of folks, realized that, the hyper-focus on E was probably a little too amplified, and, social and governance were also very important critical elements. And I think that, people sort of hit a pause. And again, the notion of ESG is around a lot of data. the end investors have been asking for, profound databases that they can actually, make intelligent decisions based on data. What our hub does is it sort of sets the stage for a framework to bring this data and collate it all together. And then, depending on what the end investor wants, they can come and sort of cherry pick through that entire repository of data that we have to make sure that it's the right data, that it's scrubbed, and you want to avoid potential risks of greenwashing that you're starting to hear in a number of different jurisdictions. And again, the standards just have to be there. So I think as the world waits for the evolution of those standards, what we're trying to do is to build a hub or repository where all the critical data that investors want to see sits in one place.
How does TMX prioritize cybersecurity to protect sensitive information from attacks and data breaches?
Priority number one. We have a number of regulated entities. The regulators is one of their major preoccupations is the resiliency of our platforms, and it is being up, 100% of the time is what we're seeking for, and we're always on the lookout for vulnerability. I have to work as partners. We have to continue investing. Let's say it's a scale game around cyber. They just keep trying, and if you have to keep investing, make sure that you can keep your platforms and your access to your platforms and the entire ecosystem safe, so that participants could transact and feel safe about their data.
What's the state of cannabis trading?
Like any evolving industry or emerging industry, people usually get very excited at the beginning. It gets very, very frothy, and then there's a reality. Things are starting to settle down. There are, sort of established players in this space now continue to grow. And we'll see. Everyone imagined that every global jurisdiction was going to legalize cannabis, and it was going to be sort of, an incredible industry. We've seen adoption be a little bit slower in certain parts. But again, our focus is on servicing our clients and what the needs are. And a number of cannabis companies that, can operate to the standards that the regulators and our own very high listing standards around, coming to market and accessing public liquidity. It comes with a certain degree of governance that they need to meet. And, a lot of our clients have met those requirements and are great participants.
What does the future look like for TMX Group?
We're launching an ETFs in the U.S. later on this year, which is Alpha US. And I think what this venue will bring to the table is an opportunity for us to showcase some of the innovation that we've been showcasing in Canada, and a lot more to come in years ahead in terms of how we build off that moat to, imagine in a not too distant future, a fierce competitor to the large incumbents here in the U.S. because a number of the large participants that they deal with that are enjoying the innovation that TMX brings to the table in the jurisdictions in which we currently trade would love to see us do more globally. So it's going to start with the U.S. and then Europe and then eventually Asia as well.
Is Canada seeing the same interest in options trading as it is worldwide?
We've seen a solid growth in that industry on an ongoing basis. What we've seen is a significant amount of growth in our ETF options in particular. And we're basically modernizing our platform to be able to, allow crosses between cash equity as the underlying hedge in terms of options. So a lot of this innovation will facilitate greater trading, and retail plays a huge part. I think retail wants to see liquidity. We want to make sure that Canadian markets don't get hollowed out. We certainly don't want to see Canadian retail investors, benefiting even from order flow in the U.S. and seeing their flows routed south of the border.
Is Canada showing an interest in Bitcoin ETFs?
Regulators in Canada embraced the issuance of ETF, the first global jurisdiction in which Bitcoin ETFs and other crypto ETFs are allowed to trade. And that innovation has certainly led to a significant amount of growth in that area. And for some reason, retail has found a great comfort in those, it's a securities zone. You buy it through a venue that you're going to have access to your cash when you say you're going to get access to your cash, as opposed to, dealing with the complexities of dealing in the crypto space for, the more mature investors that are looking at that. So that growth I can naturally see happening in the U.S. now that it's been, allowed by the regulators. And it's sympathetic. If we look at the growth pattern there, I see that continuing on these ETFs in Canada who are trying to hedge themselves. They want to hedge themselves with, a product that gives them the ability to follow the same index. So we're looking at launching Bitcoin futures contract in the not too distant future.